So not a very Merry Christmas for a lot of LastPass users. LastPass has been in the news last few days again because they had an update to a previous security incident. LastPass, for those who don't know, is a password management tool set. You can store your passwords there and protect them using a single master password. That way, you don't have to remember all your different passwords for all different sites and tools you use. Um, Password managers as a whole have been outrageously popular in more recent years, as everything has a password, or sometimes more than one password to use. It's becoming cumbersome to remember them, and security requires that we use different passwords everywhere, obviously. So having a password manager to sort of store those and keep them safe is a useful tool for many of us. Now, this kind of most recent saga with LastPass started back in August when they had published a blog post indicating that they were compromised by a third party. The third party had gained access to portions of their development environment, source code, some other technical information, but no customer data. Um, and then in November, they kind of came back and said, hey, there was another breach, or maybe it was part of the same breach where some customer data was accessed. Now, it wasn't things like passwords or the customer vaults. So that was all still safe, but there was a larger amount of data exposed than they had originally thought. And now, coming back on December 22nd, which is almost a year to the day after their 2021 breach, I think. But here we are in 2022, and the threat actor actually did, in fact, get access to customer vaults. Now, with LastPass, the way the software is designed, the organization or LastPass never has access to your passwords. They built an infrastructure that gives them no visibility into that. You use a master password that encrypts all your data in a way that only you can access it. And assuming that you've followed the rules and the suggestions, I should say, on setting that master password being long, complex, random characters, and unique, you're probably okay for a while. Because it's going to take a really long time if they're ever able to crack it, depending on what that password ends up being. The problem is if people have reused passwords, if they've used weak master passwords, if they've used easily crackable passwords, the threat actor has that data and has the ability to run attacks against the vaults to try to break into them. And while it may take time, it is kind of inevitable that it will be cracked. It's just, I mean, it will just depend on how much of a resource or CPU power they're willing to throw at this. Um, so as a LastPass user, what should you do? Obviously, 2FA is kind of the answer here, or MFA, multi-factor authentication. If you had a password that was compromised and there's MFA, you're still a little bit protected while you go and change things like these passwords. You should definitely be starting to change passwords that you had stored just in case. If you were using a weak password for your master password, and be honest with yourself about if it was weak or not, you should be a lot more concerned than if you were using a really strong one. You have a lot less time than people who used highly strong passwords. Um, but yeah, start working on that. Not the best way to spend Christmas, but that is one of the risks of using a password manager. I still think that overall they have a net positive impact on security and our lives. So I'm not saying don't use one, but understand that you still need to implement tools like multi-factor authentication. You still need to practice good hygiene when it comes to passwords. When you're doing something like a master password, you definitely want a long randomized password. You don't want to use just strings of common words or even a couple, like one common word, hopefully not. But yeah, and if you're ever curious, I've made a video in the past on have I been pwned. If you're curious if your data has ever been leaked elsewhere, feel free to check out that video. It was one of the first ones I posted during Cybersecurity Month, I think. So go check out that playlist. But to all LastPass users, good luck out there, and I have my fingers crossed for you. But check out LastPass's website for the most recent updates, and have a Merry Christmas.